Hello?
Okay, and then just text me to see if you can hear us when we get there. Thanks. It's okay. It's not gonna be.
Okay, take my glasses off and it can be whatever material I want them to be.
What are you looking at?
Oh, so.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. What do you do, remember?
Try to pass them off on someone.
Can you hear us okay, Christine?
He was one of mine.
Yes, but it does that little bit of reverb so that make sure that everyone just speaks slowly.
Yeah, that's the best video that I can get for right now. But I think it gets to everything that's important.
I'm gonna let everyone in now from the waiting room.
Okay. So we have a bit of a technical issue going on, but we've got a solution. It's not perfect that it's working, but we're gonna have to talk up a little bit more when we're speaking this evening, so that everybody hears. Then we're good. Yes, sir. Christy, you still here? It's okay.
Yes, and for everyone online just joining us, we're using a different setup tonight. So just bear with us, please.
Okay, October 4th, 2023 City Council meeting for the city of Gerhart is called to order. Is there any declaration of conflict of interest?
No.
Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the minutes. Executive session, motion, please.
I move that we accept the minutes from the executive session of the city council for Wednesday, September 6th, 2023.
Second,
I'll second that.
any discussion? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to the regular meeting minutes. Any corrections? I'll take the motion.
I move that we accept the minutes from the regular meeting of the city council from Wednesday, September 6th, 2023. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes. Moving on. Everyone's got a planning commission report in their packets. Are there any questions for Chad to answer? Hearing none, we'll move on.
Can I do
Yes.
that, sorry. About the trees, can you, Chad, I had an inquiry about the trees and about where we are on the tree planning process that we referred to the planning commission. Remember, there were some people that wanted us to look into planting cherry trees. If we were to get cherry trees, how would we sustain them? Where would we put them? Things like that. And we referred that to the planning commission.
Yes, and there was a couple of other things that we were working on as well, which was, one thing that came out of that was potentially a permitting process, for cutting trees. And that's where the planning commission has decided to start at the moment. So currently, right now, with them, we are working on a permitting process where anybody who's going to cut down a tree in Gerhart has to come in for a permit, and then we'll administrate that. Other than that, they're not making any changes to that particular ordinance. They haven't gotten to the tree planting side of things yet, and it was a little tepid on whether or not they would right now. But this is where they wanted to start with working on this ordinance, so that Garrett, and Angelina and I are bringing planning commission and ordinance to look at for the permitting process next week.
Well, I think that will be helpful. Some of our discussion tonight will be helpful for them also because our water conservation efforts are also, I think, gonna be something that needs to be considered as far as that goes, so.
Yeah, we really haven't gotten into that, but I think that that is something that we're gonna go into after this portion of it. And there may be an ordinance change as well to the tree planting ordinance, but right now it seems like the planning commission wasn't interested in that. They just wanted to have a permitting process. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it is.
Just so I'm clear, how does this work? Can they just say they don't want to consider something that we've referred to them?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, yeah, they can. If they decide that they don't want to work on it, then the city council can pick it up if they'd like. That would be a conversation, I think, with the president of the planning commission, who I thought was going to be here tonight. She may be online as well, and she might be able to speak a little bit more about that. But they're taking an approach to where they're chunking this out first. This seemed to be more important to them than that at the moment, and then after that, I'm not so sure. But conversations with I think that one of the things that we'd like to do is, and I mentioned this earlier, is bring together a counselor or two along with Ginny Gideon, talk about the directions that we're headed, and talk about what we're working on, and that would keep these things top of mind. But so I'm not sure exactly where they're going to head after this permits.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure that that's not something that we forget about. If for whatever reason it's decided somewhere down the road that that's not going to be something we're going to do, it can't be just dropped. There needs to be a formal why it's not a good idea or why it is a good idea or what the thing is. I would think.
From the planning commission?
Well, I don't know. Is it appropriate to cover them or just at least something that from them saying they're not going to do it, so that triggers us then to decide whether we are going to take it on as a group.
Right.
Well, we've got their meeting with them next week. I put that on the agenda as far as something to talk about, and what the next steps are, and discuss where that might be in their agenda and see what they say. And then from there we can react.
Okay, thank you.
So the question I've got is, right now, we're just talking about tree removal.
Correct.
There's nothing in there about tree replacement or tree planting.
No.
That it? Okay,
Is there a motion on the floor?
no, there isn't. I just wanted to know if anyone had any other questions and comments. Okay, planning commission reports done. Mayor's report. My report is I met with Justine and went over the personnel policy again. And we will be getting close. Is that not right, Justine?
Correct.
The final copy. So we will be coming to you with the final, so everyone can look at it and say whatever they have to say about it. And so that's the end of my report. And now the councilor reports. Present.
Is this a report or a concern?
Report. Concerns are at the end. Got nothing, read them.
Well,
our bench committee is kind of on hiatus until we hear from Chad that he's ordered the benches and that they're up for approval. Is this correct, Mr. Chad?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
So, committee's looking at bench types. We have one of those benches back there now, as a matter of fact, that we put together. We've got another one that's been ordered. That is the Hollywood gray bench that's in that style. And then I was going to order the third bench style, which would have been the beach dune benches that the committee is considering. But Justine, on one of her walks with her great Dane, was up at the Seaside Heights School. And they have those particular benches, a little bit different, but of the same quality, same build, same brand and all that. So I think that it would be nice for the city council to go up and take a look at that to see if that's something that they're interested in. And then potentially maybe get the building or the bench committee ladies up there as well. But it's right there in the open in the bus stop out there.
Okay. And then there was not a regional housing committee this month, but there is one tomorrow, which I should attend, but I probably won't because I'm not well. I'm just letting you know, I should be there. I'm not gonna be.
I'll make sure that I'm in your place. What time
Thank
is
you. It's
that?
at 1 o'clock at the Chisholm Center.
Okay,
Thank you.
it's on there.
Karen,
Few things. Number one, I was elected by Seaside City Council to serve on the Seaside Airport Committee. So we had a meeting last week, so I've started that. Secondly, I would very much like to thank whoever was involved in trimming the North Bridge path, because it was getting to the point where it was impassable and it's lovely now. So thank you.
Public Works guys, I'll pass that along.
Really grateful for that. Third, I've been approached by multiple Gerhardt residents about the elk issue in our town. Specifically, the question is, where'd all the elk go? So I've spent a lot of time talking with Paul Atwood at Fish and Wildlife. He's in charge of the elk in Clatsop County. I've also been on the phone with Neil Main several times because he knows more about the elk in our region than pretty much anybody. And other people have also been on the phone with Paul Atwood, so we've combined all of the information that we've gotten through all these conversations, and I just wanted to present that quickly. There are things called damage tags that are issued to property owners outside of Gerhardt city limits from August 1st to April 1st. Damage means, okay, they're eating my grass, or they're eating my flowers, or they're whatever they're doing to the person's property. 5 tags are issued per request. Once the 5 elk have been killed, the owner calls up Fish and Wildlife and says, we killed the 5 elk and we want 5 more tags. And there's no maximum limit on those tags. Okay, so you can keep going as long as you want. 1 tag goes to 1 hunter and 1 tag equals 1 elk. Okay, the elk are just reported by phone to Fish and Wildlife. There's not an in-person oversight of the elk that have been killed. No public notice is required. This is all Oregon law, by the way. On Craig Weston's property, which is the primary place where elk are killed in our area, 28 elk were killed last fall. 31 were killed in the 2021 to 22 season. 18 were killed in the 20 to 21 season. So over the past 3 years, we have a total of 77 elk that have been killed on Craig Weston's property. I know for a fact that, the elk being killed on his property has been going on for quite a number of years. Those are only the statistics that I have. Additionally, so not including the damage tags elk, there's 2 elk hunting seasons in the fall. Most of the elk killed with the damage tags, they're supposed to be females, but telling females from males is not necessarily an easy thing to do. And then during the regular elk hunting seasons, they can also kill the bulls. In our area, well, actually in all of Clatsop County, a fragmentation of the herds has been noted by Fish and Wildlife over the past 2 to 3 years. So what that looks like is the large herds have broken up into much smaller groups of elk. Neil sees elk go by his house. He lives east of the highway, and so he's seeing the eastern Gerhardt elk. He has seen no lead cow in the past couple of years. So usually in a big herd, you've got a lead cow, and he is not seeing this. Additionally, he's also seen just fragments of elk here and there. There's not been any elk herd that he has seen, and he would know, in the past 2 years. A program through Lewis and Clark National Park placed 6 collars on their elk herd in 2019. Only 3 of those are still in use. 2 of the collared elk currently, well, up until 22, when they presented their information. 2 of the collared elk have stayed up in the national park in the northern area. 1 of the collared elk is spending its time in the Surf Pines, the South Gerhardt area. Okay, and Neil has seen that east of his house. Data from the 2019 to 2021 collars, among other things, indicate that increased human development leads to decreased elk sighting. You know, we could all probably intuit that, but that's what their data are also showing. If anybody is interested in watching this data presentation, you can get it on YouTube. It's called Nature Matters Monitoring Clatsop Plains Elk. Lastly, the Fish and Wildlife have 6 to 8 collars that are sitting on their shelf. And I don't know why. So those are the facts that I've gathered, and I'm just gonna put this out to Gerhardt citizens. If we care about this, then now is maybe the time to speak up and to try to change this. If we don't care about it, the majority of the citizens are happy with this, that we don't have a Gerhardt elk herd anymore, then that's fine too. You know, it's not up to me to make the decision. It's up to the citizens. So what I would really like to do, if you all would be in agreement, is to invite Paul Atwood, who said he'd be very happy to come and speak with us, to come and speak with us.
I'd be interested in that.
So you're looking for a November meet?
May I say something? Yes, first of all, the reason that Dana gets the elk salvage deals, or pests or whatever it is, she's got horses.
Dana
Well,
West.
Dana West.
Anyway,
To be clear, I don't have horses and I don't have pets.
Right.
Another day.
we don't have an open range policy here on the coast. If the elk go and knock the fences down and her horses get out and they get hit by a vehicle on Highway 101, okay, she's liable.
Right.
And they're constantly repairing the fences. All right. Number 2, there is no hunting west of Highway 1. Unless you're on private land and have a damage tag. Okay. Same thing happened up at when Burkhart's had their dairy farm up in Woodland Park. They were issued because the elk were tearing their fences down. And they were also eating up all the pasture land that they were fertilizing. Yeah. Right? So this is, I can guarantee you that next spring, you're gonna see the herd back in Gearhart. Because number one, after the 2007 storm, when their habitat was devastated, okay? All the elk came down out of the mountains. I grew up here. I never, ever saw an elk in Gearhart. Ever. Now everybody's planting Escalonia. This is like a candy shop for them, okay? The dune, the beach grass out there, Neil will confirm this. The beach grass out there is full of salt. There isn't a hoofed animal alive that doesn't love salt. That's the reason why they're here. Right now, the bulls are off on their own and the cows are off on their own. They move around. They don't just stay here. And I'm pretty sure that Neil will tell you that.
Okay.
So, you know, just some facts that, you know, number one, bow season, you can't even hunt for elk or deer west of Highway 1.
All right, thank you. So we can still make it so it happens in first. Yeah, in November. Right?
We'll reach out to Paul and see if we can find a date that he was open to meeting with us for sure.
Yeah, okay, then we'll do that for the next council meeting, the 1st of November. I know that because the 31st is Halloween and we have a work session.
Dress up.
It's
Trick or treat?
Yeah, it is a trick. The treat is coming back to the room. All right. Is that good for you?
Yes, thank you.
Dana, please.
Again, it seems like I'm always stealing for Chief Josh's thunder, but my first point is a shout out to the Gearhart Volunteer Firefighters Association for their successful application for grant funding from state parks, and also to the citizens of Gearhart who supported the firefighters ball. And I will let him tell you what they did with that money. But I thank you guys not only for showing up, but also for finding funds to continue to be able to show up and serve our community. Received written, we already talked about the trees. I attended an HR refresher course with the mayor and some city staff. I already dealt with that. Received some written correspondence from citizens who are concerned about the tennis pickleball court design. Reminder to everybody, the public meeting for that is scheduled October 12th. Is that right?
Thursday, yes.
October 12th. So if you want your voice to count, please show up. And I believe there's going to be Zoom also for that, right?
Correct, and people can definitely submit their documents as well and be part of the record, be part of that conversation.
Okay. Yeah, you can't complain unless you voiced your you know, your feelings, your wants, your wishes in advance. So please, if you feel strongly about that, get involved in that process. This last weekend, I attended the county's Get Ready Preparedness event at Camp Rylea. It was actually a pretty neat event, and they had some good literature that I picked up that I think I'll try and disseminate on the blog here and there, especially some things that will probably be interesting to a lot of folks here in town who are like me that have pets and who say, hey, if I can't go to a shelter with my dog, then my dog and I will just live in my roof, I guess. I don't know what we're gonna do, but I'm not leaving my dog. So some interesting literature, look for that on the blog in the next coming weeks. There were some other concerns from citizens that led down a rabbit hole in investigation, and it occurs to me that it might be useful to talk a little bit or to revisit how the city, our city government model works. And what I mean by that is the separation of powers. The five of us, we are the policymakers. We make the rules. When people are upset about the rules in the city, we are the ones to blame. And there is a way to change policies and to change things. And from time to time, you have to do that, especially when you're a small city like ours, it's growing like we have been since COVID. With growth comes growth pains. And while we all are excited about the growth, you know, in our downtown area, sometimes there's a little learning curve that goes along with that. So if folks are upset with policies or rules that have been implemented by the city, this is where you come to. And then the flip side of that is, well, the flip side of that is that they don't have the authority, they're the enforcers. Our staff are our enforcers. They don't have the authority to just disregard policies that we have created. So again, if you don't like them coming out and enforcing our policies, again, there's a way to change that. Please bring it to us. And I want to thank everybody in the city over the past month who's reached out to me rather than just listening to one side of the story and just running with it and jumping on a bandwagon of negativity. We've got a great little city here, and we have, I mean, there are ways to make changes. If some of our policies no longer reflect our current community, then it's time to have a conversation about that, a civil conversation, where you can make new friends and influence strangers. But when you have less than civil discourse, it becomes divisive and counterproductive to change if change needs to occur. And then the flip side of that is also recognize how much authority each one of us has. We each individually have equal authority. I have one vote, she has one vote, he has one vote, she has one vote. Collectively, we make decisions that drive the city, but we are not supposed to get in and interfere with city staff. And if you doubt that, then I encourage you to Google what's going on in the city of John Day right now, where you've got a mayor that's in a little bit of trouble for overstepping his authority and interfering in things that are going on in the city and staff and things like that. So we all have our purview, we all have our lanes that we're supposed to stay in, or ways that a good government is supposed to work. So when you see something that concerns you, please bring it to our attention and let's work together to change it. And again, I thank the folks that have reached out to me in the last month. Last thing I have is a reminder that the next Small Cities LOC quarterly meeting for all of us is in Rockaway in November. And I will talk more about some of what I was leading up to on my council concerns.
Thank you. All right. Chief Gregory.
Good evening. Just some stat notes for September. We had 2 thefts, 4 trespasses, 1 unlawful possession of a firearm, 2 DUIs, 1 hit and run, 1 fraud case. We had a PCS meth case, 9 disturbances, 1 animal call, 7 suspicious circumstances, 8 AOAs, assist outside agencies, 3 alarm calls, 40 citizen assists. And in custodies, we had 3 arrests, custodies, and 0 were juvenile. Traffic stats, we had 48 infractions with 11 citations and 37 warnings. We had 2 motor vehicle accidents. They were both property damage, no injury. Month case files taken, we took 63 cases this month. Lexipol, moving on to that, continue to work with Lexipol and our project manager. It's going very well. We're making a lot of progress, and I'm learning a lot about the system. And the officers are also going to start getting into it as well and getting that training. So it's been a really fun process, and I think that it's going to benefit the city a lot. Vehicle upfitting that I appreciate the vote to allow that to happen. The service will not be able to be done until December because of parts being ordered and service times. So, but it's upcoming. As far as Jeremiah, he finished phase 1. He continues on his course, doing a great job. The reminder that the academy date is December 18th. And I'm hearing a lot of good things, not only from our citizens, but outside agencies that they go and help. Seaside really thinks a lot about him, and county does too. So everyone's very happy that he's a Gearhart police officer. Ian right now is in Washington participating in some high-level training this week. So he's excited to be there. I'm glad he got to go to it. So he'll come back with some new knowledge on police work, which is great.
State or DC?
State. So he's in revenue. And he's been very active and did a great job on phase 1. That's all I got.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief. It's great to hear Jeremiah is doing so well and everything else is doing.
Sure.
All right. Chief Como.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. Just some quick data info from the previous month. We had a total of 56 calls for September. 27 of them were in the city limits and 17 were out in our fire district. We sent out aid 12 times, and that breakdown is 5 was to Seaside Station 31, 1 was a wildland fire, 1 was an NBA, and 3 times they just needed extra manpower, some assistance for that. We went to Lewis and Clark once for a building fire, twice to Warrenton for building fire. Astoria had a fire, and then while we're there covering for that, they also had a medical call. They had coverage for that because they were all on the fire. And then Hamlet and LC, we assisted them with wildland fires last month for that. And we received aid 1 time at standard practice. Anytime there's like a debris burnout, that rubbish burn, the Oregon Department of Forestry comes and assists us with those because it is in the district. They take, they're like the authority having jurisdiction over there for enforcing stuff. How that compares to last year, September of 22 had 71 calls. We ended September 22 on call 556. We ended this September on 581. So even though we had 15 less calls this year than last year, we're still 25 ahead last year at the end of the day. And then, as Councilor Gould did reference, yes, we did receive awarding for a grant to help purchase the side-by-side, which will help enable our protection, our coverage much better for the citizens of Deerheart and the dunes, and that's able to do a much quicker, much better job with that. That was purchased solely from the grant and fundraising application. For the machine itself, it didn't come out of the city budget at all. Fundraising and grant. Firefighters did a huge work in getting that done to happen, and we're in the process of getting it stickered, letters that says Deerheart Fire. The hood matches the color, so anybody knows Deerheart and our special green that our apparatuses are able to see it's ours. But we're trying to limit how much it's used out in the public until it says Deerheart Fire on it. I don't want to look like just somebody having their side by side around the time. Unless there's any other questions.
And you guys are gonna equip it like the one you had for July 4th?
Yeah, so we're gonna get a much better, what we had on July 4th was just kind of firefighters putting some gear together and making some barrels and a pump work. There's a thing called a skid unit, and the blog post that went out had a picture of one. It's a solid unit that has, depending on what options we get, between a 60 and 70 gallon tank, a little pump on it. It'll have a better area that we can secure backboard to it, so there's a patient on it, we can actually secure them on the back. When we outfitted the one that we rented, we were able to have an area to secure a patient. So for that, but it will have all that extra resources on it right now, just as medical gear. So we could put somebody in the back if we had to go out on through the dunes and the beach and bring someone back from that, but it doesn't have any fire suppression yet. Cool. Thank you very much. Fire season has been declared over by Oregon Department of Forestry. For our region, finally, so I think we're the last one to come out of it. With that, so that means you can have yard debris burned so long as you have a permit from the city, and that's just for inside the city limits. And those specialty permits are good for 24 hours. We can give them day of or day before. We can't give you a permit for next week. We have to check the weather and what's going on, look at the pile, what it looks like. And then burn barrels are allowed all day long now with a permit. In that anybody outside the city limits, stuff goes through Oregon Department of Forestry. Yes.
Great,
Thank
thanks
you
a lot, Chief. Master of Money.
Well, it's hard for me to believe that the first quarter has already gone by in this fiscal year. And so far, there hasn't been any surprises financially. We're kind of on target where we anticipated revenues to be. We will know more with second quarter as property tax and some other things start to come in. So we'll be able to have a little bit clearer of a gauge of how our revenues are doing. Noteworthy in revenues last month is a $2,000 grant that the city received for assisting with planning related costs, and a reimbursement payment for one of our city's conflag mobilizations, which was the Golden Fire. There's still 5 conflag mobilizations that are awaiting reimbursement, but Chief Como does a really good job at getting those committed right away. So we've seen a quicker response time in getting those payments back. So he gets kudos for that. Noteworthy in expenditures, we had a payment to our auditors, which was in the general fund administrative account 1046. Payment in 101348 to Knudsen Insurance for an annual supplemental accidental volunteer firefighter policy that we carry on our volunteer firefighters. Payment to Clatsop County Sheriff's Office for their continued coverage support. The particular payment was deemed exceptionally high, but they had lost one of the checks from last fiscal year, so we had to void it and reissue. And then they didn't bill us in July, and so the payment was for a July 6,000 and also for a August 6,000. We're down to 6,000 a month for them for their support. And a quarterly payment to the Gerhart Volunteer Firefighters Association for their quarterly gas and clothing allotment. A new account 101373 dues and fees has been added to pay for annual fire association membership. So this is needed. We really need to separate out a dues and fees, and we just didn't have one in there. Payment in 3064 to the city of Warrenton for the purchase of water. Just straight data from one to the other, it's up 18% over last year. A new account, 3077 tech software hardware has been added, and this is to track internet provider service down at the water plant. We had been previously charging it to telephone, but it really has nothing to do with the telephone, so I think we should move it down into tech software hardware account. Although the building department has seen a more active permitting month, it was kind of slow for a couple of months. It really picked up last month. Quite a few new homes coming in, some larger homes. City staff have made a slight adjustment to the building planning court assistant salary accounts distribution. If any adjustments have an impact on the overall budget appropriations, a budget resolution will be proposed, but overall, in terms of financial impacts, this change is de minimis. It's just moving around the account numbers. It's not really changing any dollar amounts. I do have some concerns, and I had sent an email out today over the grant award distribution in Fund 45, which is the state revenue sharing fund, which we get money for and then we pass through back to local organizations. In the past, the city of Gerhart has distributed these grant awards between August and September. So we have been paying these out to our grant recipients before we have the revenue to cover them. So if something should happen and the state was unable to pay us, or there was a hang up, we would have that fund in a negative fund balance, which we cannot do. The city receives 4 payments from the state for this type of apportionment, which is usually August, December, February, May. Currently, we have a little over $28,000 in that fund, which is not enough to pay out all the grant awards that we have awarded yet. We would have to wait. So I had talked with the auditors about some of the options and what we should do, and it really is up to us. I am recommending to change the distribution of the state revenue grant award this year. I think we could talk about how they're awarded during the budgeting cycle more in depth, and maybe come up with a process that the budget committee can also be involved with. But we need to kind of make a decision now. And my recommendation was prioritizing grant awards on social needs, so ones that dealt with food, shelter, domestic violence, those types of things, coupled with the date they had put on their application. So they had put a date on there that they needed the funds, and then releasing the awards in phases as the revenue came into the city. We have paid out one, just so you know. They had contacted us in July and requested the funds, and we had an ending fund balance, so I paid that one out because they needed the money. The distribution is not something that we have to formally approve because fund allocations were approved in the budget process. We went through the process of approving these. We never promised the money at any time. And there is no assigned distribution set schedule for the grant award, so we never signed anything, we never promised them money in any formal way, so there's really no practice or policy other than we've just done it different times throughout the different years in the past. So basically, the city has agreed to pay the grant award. Basically, our obligation is that we would want to pay those by June 30th of 2024, by the time our end of our fiscal year is up. I think it's important that we have a conversation, and I can make that decision just as far as I don't want it to be a negative fund balance, and so I have to do something in order to fix it. But I'm interested in hearing input or what you think might be the best way to distribute these funds. If we don't pay anything out and we wait till all of our revenue comes in, if it's a hard line, I think in December we'll have almost all of them covered, but I think there will be a few in December that won't be covered. I think they would be pushed to February in order to get that money. If we don't pay any of them till we have the revenue, they won't get the money till February.
Okay. I agree with you with that negative balance. So do you think we should wait until December to pay out the majority and then whoever's
Well,
the ending?
we could pay out 24,000 additional in October. We have $24,000 sitting in there right now, or we had 28, but we paid out like 3,800 already. So we have an additional 24 we could pay out right now.
What was the $852 that was paid out?
Street dance,
Oh, okay.
we had agreed, so they had part of a payment in June because they had put a down payment on, we agreed to help them with the street dance. The Gerhart homeowners also chipped in, so that was our portion.
Well, I agree with what you had proposed. The only thing that I would ask is those that do have to wait until February be notified in a letter or by mail to say we have the money, but it won't be released later, because if they're expecting it now, they'll be able to set.
And I like the idea of in the future applications, we make it clear to them that the monies will be dispersed as they are received from the state. We don't lock ourselves into any kind of a date, you know, so we're not in trouble if the state doesn't follow through on their commitment.
And Christine, I kind of talked to you a little bit about the application, and she was thinking maybe we might even have something like, could you do it in quarter one? Do you want the funds in quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four?
Okay.
You know, even try to make it a little more broad. Some people don't need it right away. They put July 1, but they only put that because they think that's when they forget it. They just need it by the end of the fiscal year.
So you have a sense of who needs it more than who doesn't need
No.
it? I guess that's why I made that suggestion, because I'm like, well, what if I was one of those entities that really needed the money and I had budgeted really closely, and then all of a sudden benefactor says, oh, sorry, you know, we're not gonna get the money to you, and then you're kind of stuck. So I think that's where my suggestion was coming from, because I put myself in their place and I was like, oh, that could be really bad. But if you have a sense of,
I just looked at their applications, but like I said, some of them just put fiscal, they need it by fiscal year 22-23, which to me means just by June 30th of 2024. They just need it. Some said, you know, as soon as you can get it to me. Some said October, some said fall. There were lots of different ones. So I looked at it as, okay, well, our goal kind of when we were in the budget committee and we were kind of prioritizing these, we were specifically looking at how ones in our community helped the houseless situation, how they helped provide shelter, how they provide, and so I just kind of went from there. And
I like the idea of triaging it and giving it to the need over the wants. But I also like the suggestion that Sharon made where you put it out by the percentage, because we're in no man's land right now. I would say, however, that during the next process, when we do this again, then we should rate or score them by, this is gonna be our number one, this is gonna be our number two, this, as the monies come in, we pay them first, second, third. But for this year, I'm okay with either one. I trust that, I mean, I think it was pretty clear on our applications this year. A lot of it went to folks that need it. So start at the top with whatever money we've got and work your way down, or pay 5% on either.
Yeah, Sharon's recommendation was maybe we could take the 24,000 and just proportionally divide it out amongst everyone.
I think the human services.
Well, I mean, I understand why you guys are thinking that, but, that's your personal priorities, which may not be my personal priority or Dana's or whatever. I'm not faulting saying that, that's your personal priority, I get that, and I totally understand it. But that means you're making a decision about who's worthy over who's less worthy, which as a government entity, I mean, I guess to some extent you have to do that, but do we really want to do that?
I'm not arguing that, you know, that all these people aren't deserving. I'm just saying that, you know, we have limited funds right now.
I understand.
I think that, you know, until we get the revenue, I think that the people that are actually needing either housing or food or whatever it is, should get whatever.
But
tips that
we
we've got.
don't have their, financial statements, so we don't know what they need immediately. or what they don't. You see what I'm saying? You're basing it on what's important to you, which I totally get, but you're not basing it on financial statements. I mean, maybe some of those entities don't need that money right now. I have no idea, obviously.
Mr. Mayor, since December is the earliest that we would likely be making payments, we might want to schedule this as an agenda item. What started out as kind of a just ask for instruction has really turned into more of a debate around how to allocate, how and when to allocate funds. It's possible that members of the public or the agencies who receive the funds would want to weigh in if we're going to look at a more holistic approach towards grants and selecting grants.
Thank you, Peter. It's a great idea. November,
November, December.
November, because we're doing it in December.
I
Right?
think that's a good idea. I think if we get it approved in November, then if we get the money before the council meeting in December, we could write those checks right then. Because we'll be close in December to meeting almost everybody's needs. Last year, I think the December check was like $8,000 and there's 11,000 there. So we would be really close.
Okay, as long as we're not doing the negative dance.
Yeah.
Okay, you got it. Master of money.
Okay.
Anything else?
Do you have one?
No, I'm done.
I do have a question for you. As far as the, 1263 purchase services, 10/12/63, purchase services, is that where we're paying for the sheriff's contract?
No, it's
Okay.
in, 10/12. Is that what you said, Dana?
10/12/63?
Yes, that is the 37,000.
Yeah,
Yes, so they had a $12,000 one from June. They didn't invoice us until July. So in July, we had a $12,000 payment. We also have Lexipol there. Then we had two $6,000 payments for,
Two months after that.
yeah.
well, and my concern is, and is that we need to come up with a plan. If we're gonna continue to pay for the sheriff's department at what we're paying them, and we have approximately 6 more months. And we're already at 70% of our yearly budget. This is the discussion we need to have, or you need to have, bring it to us next month and let us know what you decide is. You think you're going, whether you're gonna handle operationally or whether we're gonna have to handle it.
If we stay with the 6,000, we'll have to transfer. There won't be enough money.
We can add that to the agenda for sure.
A third.
I think it depends upon just making, there might have to get up and train in order to be. No, he's not going to be. 12 weeks.
Yeah, but, and that's my point here, is that nothing is going wrong.
Right,
it's going the way it's supposed to, we need the coverage, we need law enforcement, blah, blah, blah.
right.
I just, wanna make sure that we're looking at that forecasting and out ahead of it rather than
Yes,
it's, it happening.
agree.
Anything else? All right. Peter, what?
Yeah, a few things. PSU is having a meeting in Portland on November 6th to discuss population estimates, so that I'm planning on attending that. Couple of reasons that it's really important. One is that it determines how we can grow in the event that we need an urban growth boundary. And other communities on the coast also, because we're all kind of put together, so we need to make sure to have really accurate data. And then the other reason is because a lot of the state shared revenues are based off of the Portland State population estimate. So, you know, their estimate of our population compared to the census in 2020, we were at 4x of what they had estimated. And the reality is that that impacted the amount of money that we had received over the preceding 10 years. And, you know, there's a reason to believe that we received substantially less than what we should have gotten. So I had pushed very hard for 2020 that cities could use the census data over as an alternative to Portland State's, and ultimately the legislature allowed that to happen. I'm sure I was not the only one that had this idea, because we were not the only city that was substantially off. The other piece that I'm kind of monitoring is that DLCD, which is the Department of Land Conservation Development, has been tasked with coming up with new rules to increase city density, and which is really difficult for us because we're on septic systems, and so there's a public health aspect to that. So we're going to have the kind of notice in some written comments came out yesterday and today, and just making sure that there are appropriate caveats for cities that aren't on sanitary sewer, and also the amount of population that has to be in a contained area of the city. So and it's just and there also we've mentioned this before, but Oregon Land Use 10, which is a variety of housing options, the way that's been calculated in the past has been at the point of sale. So if something's sold for 20 years ago for a really low cost, whether or not it is still affordable, it is counted that way. So they're also looking at how that goal 10 requirement is being calculated. And so this is all, you know, it's just when state agencies are taking on this work, a lot of times it doesn't necessarily receive a lot of media coverage, and so people aren't aware. And then we'll get a Oregon administrative rules. Might not be something we can even comply with, so trying to kind of keep in front of all this. And then the other piece, and I think a couple of you have alluded to this, our city of Gerhardt has a comprehensive plan that is very specific to certain zones in the city. So less specific on the highway, very specific once we get into the kind of historic downtown core. And so people might remember during the pandemic that we established some new code in order to provide businesses with more freedom and kind of ability to hopefully stay open, hopefully not go out of business, and yet still meet the letter and the intent of that comprehensive plan. And we, the council obviously was concerned about those businesses, and so they interpreted it pretty broadly. And so if people want to further broaden kind of what can happen in different zones, it likely would take a comprehensive plan amendment. I'm not suggesting that you want to amend it or not want to amend it, because that can be very controversial. it's rather just saying legally, if you want to go much further than we've been in the downtown zone. There are other zones that have more flexibility, but in this downtown zone, that's the discussion we would probably want to have. The other thing that, could add some clarity into our zoning. And again, this is just to let you know what options are, it's not to suggest you go one way or the other. Would be to look at zoning for businesses that, historically have been in business and maybe are non-conforming, and there are multiple ones around the city. Whether you would want to look at the underlying zoning for some of those in order to true up the zoning. It would essentially true up the zoning and the use. And I'm not suggesting you do that, but one reason to consider it is because it can be really challenging for staff with this prior non-conforming uses in order to know exactly what was going on and when, and relying on memories and photographs and other things of what was happening. And I know I've had some of those conversations. And so it's just, what are our options for those things? One option would be a rezone. Another option would be, I mean, if the use, there was a house that had been a young life camp, and they abandoned their use for a period of years, and so that use went away. And so that's how you can, those are really the two ways to get pre-existing, that's outside of our control, but those are the two ways to get pre-existing non-conforming uses to true up back with what the underlying zone was, either through a lack of use, so they lose it, so that it can only be allowed in the R1. The others are to look at the uses allowed in the zoning. The problem with that is something that might work in one zone of the city geographic, might not work in another same zone geographic, because those can be different. And then the other would be to look at a rezone. And so I've had a couple of conversations with our planning staff. We have a new planner now who's getting up to speed. We have some unique issues in Gerhardt that are less common in other jurisdictions, just because of how our comprehensive plan was drawn. And so that's kind of a conversation I've had with him, so he can get up to speed, and also kind of staff about, okay, if there is a problem that people are bringing to your attention and we're having trouble kind of walking through these issues, here are the paths, and that is a council decision, that's not a staff decision. But whatever the majority want to do, we can implement it. But that might be a conversation where November's agenda is getting pretty loaded up, but at some point we might want to have kind of that conversation, and so people have clarity moving forward.
And the public would have to be involved.
Absolutely, yeah, we would, for this to work, the public has to be involved in these conversations, because they really are about the vision and values of one place, that place being your heart.
So do you think it's pertinent that we have that conversation sooner than later?
I mean, that's for you guys to decide. I've been your city attorney for, I think, 11 years now, and I know how strongly people in your heart feel about the comprehensive plan. I think that part of the value of this is educating the public that, these, and there's some historical reasons why things happen the way they did. Our zoning maps is kind of counterintuitive in a lot of respects between what's zoned for city and what's zoned for other uses. There can be a property that's always been adjoining, where it's two parcels and one's zoned one way and one's zoned the other. Then the other issue we've had is just, short-term rentals. Kind of, when did some of these things start? And like the corollary that I would draw is we had a fence once, it was a long time ago. The fence was built higher than what was allowed. And, somebody went around town and basically took pictures of every fence that was non-conforming. And we knew that some of those were already built prior to our rules, so you can replace those. And then other people had relied upon a city manager prior to Chad who kind of did things just by saying, sure, do it. And so how we handled that was we revoked the fence ordinance for a very short amount of time and then imposed the fence ordinance after that very brief amount of time. And then every fence that was built that we had the photograph of, because somebody had done a comprehensive study of every fence in your yard, was then a pre-existing non-conforming use. And so we truly had data. And that's probably not how we're gonna want to go with this at all, because we have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming uses. But again, I think the value in letting the public understand why some things are this way and some ways aren't, the tools that you might have at your disposal to the extent that you want to correct something. And then if that is what you guys want, and that's what the community wants, because you want community buy-in, of course, then we can figure out how to implement that. But it's been, I don't know, it's just in the last year, maybe folks aren't as familiar with some of our really limited things like sign ordinances that can be controversial. But if everybody knows what they are, then it's just easier for them to comply with them. And to the extent that people don't think that's how they should be anymore, we can always amend something if a majority of council wants. But the rules are, as whether people like the rules or not as they are, we have to follow them as they are. And I noticed there's a code enforcement report that we have. Our code enforcements we don't have city staff going around the city looking. We get complaints and then city staff has to take a look at it. And it's a complaint driven system. That's how it works. So, again, that's the way it is. You guys can change it if you wanted. But proactive code enforcement generally is not, that can be pretty controversial. So that's why we do the complaint driven system.
Staff intensive.
Yes, it's very staff intensive.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Short-term rentals by people who are doing a trade, their home as opposed to getting money for their short-term rentals. So that's not considered in our city as a short-term rental, correct?
Not by our definitions.
Is that a city law? Is that a county law? Is that a state law?
Well, and I've spent a lot of time on short-term transient lodging issues. What allows us to enforce is the fact that they're being offered for rental. So we actually have a computer program that scrolls across all internet platforms. So we actually know how many days it's being rented for, at what price it's being offered, and all that, which allows us to know how much revenue they're going to remit to us. And unlike almost every other jurisdiction, like Portland does not have that capability. If someone is gifting their house to somebody else, whether it's a family member or a friend, there's just no way for us to know about it. I mean, it's not unusual for someone to say, hey, you want to use the house in October or something, and there's no remuneration changing that. So if they're doing some sort of elaborate trade that's offline.
It's actually a situation where I think they're in a club or a group or whatever, where you can trade dwellings. So it could be monitored if you monitored that group or club or whatever you call it. if that's the only issue, then I think that's surmountable. But see, to me, in my mind, it seems like if you're offering your house and trading to be able to stay at their house, it's like still a contractual kind of a thing. It's not family, it's not friends. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we don't see it that way. So all these people in our town who wanna have short-term rentals but don't, because we're captive, can just join one of these clubs and then start trading their homes, and I just don't
So
know.
why don't, we can look at the depth.
This is a situation where like if could find somebody in Rome to take my house for a month and I can take their house for a month. Sounds cool. I think that the reason that we did the short-term vacation rental was to protect housing, right? And to stop commercialism within the areas and to stop all of the turnover and the constant movement. To date, I haven't had any complaints about a home sharing program like that. But since you brought it up, I've been kind of monitoring it a little bit. I haven't seen anything that I could find, but I think I found somebody in Rome that'll take my house for me.
But you don't live in the city.
No, I don't live in the city. There's that
They
too.
made a movie about that, didn't they? Remember the
We can take a look at that. And the other major reason that we wanted to do this system that we had was health and safety. So to make sure that the septic tank was right size for the occupancy in the house. We had people on cesspools. We didn't know about that. To make sure there was mapping there, like make sure the windows were painted shut. And also because what had traditionally been workforce housing was becoming vacation rental. So the summer that we enacted our regulations, there were actually no long-term rentals offered in the city yard. And now we've gone from, I think, 87 to 68, so Pete houses are being returned to, I don't know if they're long-term rentals or not, but they're no longer.
Yeah.
I think it's 9.
That it, Peter?
Yeah, that's all I've got.
Thanks a lot. Pat,
So water, I'll update you on a few things with water. So through the irrigation system updates the city did on our landscaping watering system, we saved 2.5 hours of watering over the last month due to weather intelligence. So the device that we installed it's just a landscaping control unit. We installed that at the city. It gets on the internet, looks at the weather just like everybody else does, and then stopped and saved us probably about 1,500 gallons during that period of time. So that was successful. We've been showing people, this device, and some people have said that they were going to go ahead and order it. I think if we can get a lot of your heart folks with their landscaping irrigation systems to go to a weather intelligence type, which is not that expensive, we'd save a lot of water and fun.
How much does it cost?
About $200, and you can install it yourself. It does not take a permit to install it. Just plugs into the wall, and then you switch wires out. It's pretty easy. So that's exciting. Water valve exercising, we completed that. No major problems. Backflow devices, the ladies at the front in the water are working with that, making sure that everybody's legal on the backflow devices. So you might hear some percolating around community, but that's going well. We're starting a test with a gentleman named Bruce Reed, and we are installing 3 AMI meters, advanced meter infrastructure is what that stands for. And this is a system that will by the minute report to us water usage if we want to know. So it will help detect leaks. It will also help us do a lot better job of detecting leaks within the city, because we can say we made this much water today and we used this much water today. What's with the difference? So there's some things going on, and this is an expensive process that we're going to go through. We're starting the study period now. It'll probably be about $100,000 a year for us to get into this AMI thing for the first 10 years anyway. But I think, and so do some other people, think that the savings will outweigh that. So I'll report more as I know more. Start those tests. let's see here, with the increased movement and the tickets and the code enforcement and all the things that Chief Gregory was talking about, municipal court is getting a little busier these days. So that's something that the city staff is dealing with. That's one of the reasons that we're kind of moving some money around also, because we're finding some other amounts of time that Angelina is spending on this, but court is getting busy. This whole thing with the amount of people that have come into Gearhart has affected every department, and with our new police department and doing a nice job, they're getting busy as well. I'm going to be at the League of Oregon Cities Conference next week for 3 days, so I'll be out of town for that. I'm not going to go through the entire report here, but I did give you a code enforcement closed case and active case report. This is something that our planning department's been working on with the state and a new software program. So we're able to track these, keep them going, make notes, share information, and so that's going really well. So I want to let you know what we were doing with code enforcement. And I can tell you that a lot of the little things that we don't deal with are on this yet. Eventually we'll get there, but for now, we're just kind of keeping it to the major cases that we do, but every day we take care of our code enforcement issues as they come up. We've had some things about, we were talking about code enforcement, and when one person took pictures of a fence and went around town, we had to work through that. One of my toughest code enforcement jobs I've ever had to do is this lady who took pictures of all the sounds in the community when I tried to hold her accountable for her sign, because she put one out that was too big. She went everywhere. She took pictures. It was probably the hardest code enforcement issue that I've ever had to take care of, and it was my wife. I slept on the couch for a couple days. So, you know, we're not picking on just anybody. We try to not share car. What was that? Not your car. She was kind enough to not go like that. She moved her business out of town. That's all that I have to report for right now.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
All right. Any questions for Chad? All righty. We're now down to visitors. We have no visitors, so we're going to go to up. Pardon me, we have no visitors. Okay, we do have public comment time coming up. Thank you. Anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgearhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. All right. We're going to start with the two people, and I believe it's Bob Caboa.
Bob Carson,
There's an R there?
226 Ridge Drive.
Sorry about that. Okay, Bob.
First of all, I want to congratulate everybody having anything to do with the city in terms of having a playground and extending the ridge path to the north. I also admire you for requiring a permit to cut trees and in general having concern for the natural features of this town. I want to talk again about Neocoxie Creek, and this is going to be somewhat repetitive of what I talked with you all about maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember. And the reason I'm repeating is because I heard, I don't know this, that there was a building permit given for a new dwelling very close to Neocoxie Creek. So what are the benefits of Neocoxie Creek as it is right now? It's critical habitat for mammals and birds. It's got old growth Sitka spruce and other vegetation that are a carbon sink. And although it's just a little bit, that reduces global climate change and accompanying problems like sea level rise, ocean acidification, and anoxia, plus many multiple weather hazards. The trail along Neocoxy Creek, the Ridge Path, provides recreation, peace, exercise, etc. To me, there is no place that I have seen on earth that is like Neocoxy Creek, its vegetation and its trail and its wildlife. It may be unique. I don't know. Gerhard is very lucky to have it, and I think it ought to be preserved. I think there are many reasons not to further develop, not to give any more building permits within 100 feet or 200 feet of Neocoxy Creek. One is that it has a high water table. Another is that septic tanks are not likely to function properly. Another is potential pollution of the creek by the septic tank or some other way. Because that area next to the creek has unconsolidated, water-saturated, organic rich soils, when the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake occurs, the area close to the creek will have more subsidence and more shaking than anywhere else, for example, like up on one of the dunes. So I have a question for the city attorney. Could the city be liable for giving a building permit in a place that is more hazardous than anywhere else in town? I urge the city to work with Native Americans. I understand that Native Americans had a lot to do with this new place just at the south end of town. And I urge you to work with land trusts like the North Coast Conservancy to see if you can get help or advice or money or whatever for preserving Neocoxy Creek the way it is. It is very special to this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob Carson. Shannon Smith.
Right. Shannon Smith, 774 Pacific Way. And it's quite fortuitous, given I live right next to the creek. And I'm ironically going to talk a little bit about wildlife, wetland wildlife, including what could be categorized as elk and some various things. So I am putting on my glasses, which are the wrong thing, so bear with me. I recently ran across, well, first of all, I've been a passionate person invested in environmental science, preservation, conservation, and education my whole life. My very first letter I ever wrote to a city about risk to our environment and our natural settings here was about the beach in Seaside that was going to make condos right where all the clam beds were. And we overcame that. So that was about, well, many years ago. What I'd like to talk about, and I have a handout for you, was recently the first of its kind North American wetland wildlife inventory was done, and by some very significant, excellent groups that do that kind of research for all of the United States. In Oregon, there's one location that is a South Slough estuary area called the South Slough Reserve, that's a mouthful, near Coos Bay, and it's about 4,700 acres. The other one on the West Coast we have closest to is in Washington, and it's above Anacortes, and it's called Padilla Bay, and it has 11,900 acres. So biggers and smallers, but the map that's included in the link I'm sending to you has all over the country, the different ones they surveyed. Of course, we on the West Coast have our elk and other wildlife that is inventoried in it. And they did it over many, many years with all sorts of scientific experts. And what's great about this is they made these reserves and they made them protected and with conservation and particularly to do research. And as Bob mentioned, ours here, our natural environment here along Neocoxy Creek is incredibly unique. Our former state wetlands guy for our county, Dan Carey, introduced me to a concept, well, it's not a concept, it's called the Aquatic Resources Special Concern. And directly to the northeast here, that particular section of forest is a classic example of it. Big Sitka spruce trees that are 500 maybe years old. I have pictures of the barn in the 1920s that show the same trees being a little smaller. So they're big old trees. and all the kind of environment that, and the wetlands that have an ecosystem around it is really quite special. And I'll tell you, Bob's been a lot of places in the world, all the continents. So trust him that it's a pretty good example of something truly unique. What I would like to talk further and go into maybe some collaboration with city and other folks about is creating a initiative to look at preserving and doing a conservation corridor. I looked up recently when I saw this inventory to say, what type of money, like the grants people are mentioning here, could be possible out there for this kind of endeavor? I looked up some of the new things that are included in the new infrastructure bill. They include some pretty cool things. Has a special focus, this one, on helping coastal communities build the future they want to see, providing historic investments in coastal protection and restoration that will increase community resilience to climate change and extreme weather events and improve ways we can manage our ocean resources. That's one that we're all concerned about. And then two was, in addition to the restoration, approximately like 21 million in the infrastructure law, funds are awarded to support ocean regional partnerships and projects that are about protection of and conservation of these special environments. And there's also awards to tribes and their ability to, again, protect and preserve cultural interests as well. I gave you a list of some of the links that go to that. And what I found amazing was I have been talking now over many years to find out who else in the area is interested in this. I have folks I know in Seaside that want their unique waterways over there, as well as ours here, to be protected for the future. I lived in Oregon when Tom McCall made all the beaches public, and it was totally an awesome thing he did. I'd love to see that same thing for our community. We can actually apply to be a reserve. And especially for the education opportunities for people from Portland, universities, school kids, it would be incredible. And personally, I will tell you, there is wildlife here that is visible and we can study and protect and enjoy. And not only the elk, but beavers, otters, all sorts of things that are just quite incredible. So I gave you some resources here. I'd love to be able to form a committee. I'm going to go talk to Seaside about their folks that are interested, as well as the tribal groups, to see if we could maybe form a consortium. We have a beautiful estuary and a wetlands network here that's like pretty special. And we're close to Portland. We're also an area that could be studied with all our incredible scientists and interested people. So I wanted to give you some information on that. And with that, I'll let you know if there's any questions in my 6 seconds. No?
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, I'll give you a minute. Forgive my.
I think we're gonna I'll pass a couple of things, so there you go. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Get this passed out and then we'll move on. Oh my goodness. There is no resolutions or ordinances that we need to go through. Oh, my goodness, I'm sorry. Brendan, yes, was just looking at my little cheat sheet. Okay, anyone got any questions on the mail that we received?
I do,
Okay,
regarding the Operation Green Light. In the letter, Angelini says, we are happy to provide green light bulbs to your city for this effort. Have you ordered them?
Last year, Counselor, I made an investments in green light bulbs. We're good to go.
So are you dispersing them to the public?
Oh,
Dad?
no, excuse me. Not for doing anything for the public. This is for the city itself, to go ahead and light up the fire stations, city halls,
All right, so this is not for the public.
No,
Oh,
but if they,
Chad, the county is giving us, I think, 6 bulbs.
will take them and distribute them.
thank you.
Last year we did did we do a proclamation? Will we do that again on the November?
The way that it was explained was that the proclamation was made, and then that we will continue to do the current line.
Okay, that was it for me.
Are there any other comments or questions about the mail?
Chad? Hello? Deb Papadopoulos here. Are you discussing the pickleball tennis court resurfacing yet?
No, Deb, that discussion is gonna happen in the planning commission next Thursday.
Okay, so
Not
you're not discussing that at all?
I don't think so, unless one of the councilors is gonna bring it up now. It's not on the
Okay.
agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, nobody else has anything else on the mail? Moving on. Comment is done. Late written comment, we have none. Now to ordinances and resolutions, there are none. Old business, we have none. New business, discussion, water conservation pricing direction.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I provided a synopsis here with a report. This is stems from a conversation that we had with Steve Donovan last month. He had proposed a few different options for us to do conservation pricing, meaning making water a little bit more expensive the more you use. He came up with the memorandum that's attached, that's dated September 12th, with his analysis. And the city staff has looked at this, and we would recommend that we would move forward with this pricing structure for water conservation. You know, what we would need to do to move forward with this is a resolution. City staff would bring a resolution back to the city council to update our rate structure to be able to handle this. We would make changes as soon as that resolution was voted in. And we could do that by next month, or at least by January is what our goal is.
I think I like what he's proposed. It answered my 2 concerns. My biggest concern was that we not hit people so hard that they stopped watering their grass and we put all of our lawnmowers and landscapers out of business. The other issue that I had, the other worry that I had, I should say, is that we have a lot of people that are using a lot of water are home gardeners. They're retired, they're on a fixed income, that's their hobby. And, you know, people make fun of that saying, let's keep Gearhart, but that's part of the aesthetic of Gearhart. That's part of what makes Gearhart is a lot of the gardens that we see around. So I wouldn't want to obliterate those. And so I was a little concerned initially with this first proposal. You know, the over 50 numbers were pretty high. And I thought it was a little too complicated, but I like that he has parsed it down, and I like that he's reduced the numbers also. I think it's a good start for us. I think I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, well, I personally would like to see it harder on the people at the upper end of the spectrum, but I will go ahead and vote on a, what do you want? A motion to come up with a resolution?
I think instruct us to bring the resolution to an upcoming meeting. We'll go ahead and accomplish that. I don't think it's gonna take that much time, so we could bring it in here pretty soon. We could do it by November, but again, our goal was by December or January 1.
We're also going to include in there that it's something that triggers us to look at it each year and
That's already in place.
evaluate how it did, make sure that we don't hit them so hard that it offsets our efforts to make more money, because we still need to make more money. We want them to conserve, but we don't want them to undermine our efforts to make more money.
Correct. Our desire is to go through that during the budget process.
We got to find a balance in something.
Right. So we gotta walk that night. We do that.
Okay.
Okay, all those, I want to say, go ahead and come up with
Do I have a
a.
consensus to bring the resolution, with the current pricing structure as it is?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Moving on. Discussion, LOC 223 Annual Conference Voting Delegates. Yeah,
So, League of Oregon Cities, sent out correspondence regarding the election of the 2024 LOC Board of Directors. After informal inquiry, Councilor Poole volunteered to be the city's voting delegate to cast the actual vote on October 14th. Candidate selection period ends September 26th, filed on the LOC website for review. Tonight is the opportunity for the council to discuss and recommend an LOC Board of Director candidate for 2024. Only one vote per city is eligible. Staff recommends council discuss the candidates and later individually email Councilor Poole the recommendation. There will be so there will not be a tie with 5. If no candidate receives 2 votes, she will contact each of you for a tiebreaker, providing the final 2.
And it's unlikely to be tied because there are only 4. I mean, it's pretty much, they're gonna do a
Yeah,
presentation on October 14th.
isn't, oh, I'm sorry, to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Isn't there another email that states that when she sent this one out, she forgot to include somebody? But it's only one person per elected office, so it's really, does anyone have any heartburn against any of these members
Right.
being in their position? Because otherwise, I don't wanna say it's a no-brainer, but, you know, if we have a delegate, you're gonna vote for the
Right.
people that are there.
The only thing that could change it up is that on, I believe it's October 14th, and I am going to the League of Oregon Cities Conference. And I will be there to see their presentations in person, but it is possible that somebody could throw in an additional name at that time. They will accept people if somebody wants to throw their name into the hat at that point. So that's the only thing that might change it. Everybody here has the ability to zoom in and watch it. Also, you don't actually have to be present to watch the presentations. As far as the bio, Christine, did you get a copy of the bios? Because I couldn't find them. I called LOC today and I just couldn't get my hands on them. But if we can track those down, I'll try again tomorrow, then maybe we can disseminate those ourselves. But I didn't see bios.
No, they haven't published anything and they might not. I'm not really familiar with this process. I just figured that the candidates would have some kind of a write-up or something, but maybe it's
I think it's an
not
oral
as difficult with
presentation.
only 1 per slot.
Yeah, I think it's an oral presentation on the 14th. And like I said, the only thing that could change up who these people are or who our options are is if somebody threw their name in the hat to meet us.
Mayor, you were correct. There was a 5th. It was a lady named Rochelle. She was what did they say? Appointed official position. Rochelle Rogan, city manager of Dayton.
Oh, yeah, that's
Right.
right.
So it's just a consensus that when you go vote for everyone that's on the list.
Right.
Or you can delegate to her to make the decision for the council if there is a period of time where there's a choice to be made.
Well, I'm more than happy with your decision-making process so far. So I would be willing to entertain the fact that you have my vote to decide who to vote for at the LOC. Is there any discussion or does anyone wanna?
That's a wise decision, Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Rita.
I'm all.
Sharon, stroke this. It's a it's a great decision. Okay, yeah, you got your direction now. Sneeze. Now I'm all red in the face. Okay, so last thing, household water assistance program. This is under new business. This calls for saying that anyone who wishes to speak at this time may speak on this new business for 3 minutes, and that is it. Does anyone want to speak about this low income household water assistance program? I see none. So we'll go on to, let's synopsis this.
So Chad has asked me to step in. So this particular program is a program that we have been using here in the city of Deerheart with our water department. And they have asked that we sign on behalf of low-income families who need assistance with their water bill. The renewal letter and agreement is attached. The organizations need partnership renewed annually so they can speak to the vendors, the city of Deerheart, on the behalf of the account holders. So they will call, we don't have very much personal information about them. They're mainly curious about, do they have, what their account is, their account number, do they have outstanding water bills? So this just allows them to communicate. They never ask us anything extremely sensitive in any way. It's mainly just factual to make sure that our families get assistance that need it. And the council doesn't need to sign anything. It just, by consensus, you're okay to continue this program.
Really?
I have a question. Do we know how many people are in our service area that are low-income household water assistance program?
I was just trying to think, I'm pretty sure just off the top of my head, I know at least 6 families that have received between $400 and $600. They send a lump sum money to help those families.
And how is the low income part determined?
They have an application process that they have to fill out with the community actions team. Then the community action team helps them. I try to encourage people who often call, who have financial difficulties, to maybe reach out to this company. Because the application is not complicated, and so they do a review. I've never looked at it very closely, so I don't know if there are quicker ways, like if you have free, SNAP or other things that expedite it, but we definitely receive between $400 and $6 checks to these people's accounts. So they just send the money.
So this was a program that came about during COVID. The concern would be people with water being shut off. So what they ended up doing was, and it's been a couple of years, feels longer, since I did a deep dive into this, but there's certain verifications they need to do to make sure that people are eligible. And then if they are, there were kind of these block grants that were available. And as I understand it, depending on the size of the family's need, then it's a direct pay. So the other piece of this was there's an extra level of privacy. So instead of the city staff needing to review all this stuff and make a determination on eligibility for a modest means program, that this group would do it instead. And there's some enhanced like public records, I think, rules so that, to preserve the privacy of people. So the community action team does it for the 3 county areas, Clatsop, Tillamook, and Columbia, and the people can provide their information to the CAT without their neighbors, knowing what their financial status is, et cetera. So I think those were it was the COVID era program, and I think at the time it came about, they thought there was going to be a huge number of these applications, and I don't know that that's been the case, but this continues that program for 6 months.
For 6 months?
Yeah. Till March of next year. And I don't know if it's that they have 6 months of funds left to allocate, or because originally we were doing this on an annual basis. So It's possible they're almost done.
But just so you know, the staff at the city hall always work, they often work with, try to figure this out, so. We're not out there to shut people's bar off, but this has been helpful to the city as well.
So you don't need anything signed. We don't need a resolution, not
Just-
even a motion, just
That's
a
the
consent.
consensus that we can continue the relationship.
Anyone got a problem with that? Shall we continue?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Council concerns. I'm gonna go first. So I was given a copy of a couple of postings on Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever it is that I got it from. One was from a person claiming to be an owner of the Good Times and saying that we were harassing them and trying to make them or not have them fail, but we just weren't making it possible for them to do what they wanted to do. And someone glamored onto that posting, claiming he is knowledgeable, saying that it was a conspiracy of the city administrator, our code enforcement officer, the mayor, myself, and the planning commission that have forcibly tried to make this company fail. And in their email, they said they were doing everything by the book. And the only thing I can say to them is they're in the wrong book and on the wrong page. Because it's quite simple what our sign ordinance is, what our lighting ordinance is, if you look. And if you don't look and you try and do something, this city is very protective of its C1 zone. We believe 3 years ago when we expanded the uses down there, that we were doing something good. And people, nobody but the newbies are having an issue. And that's because they're trying to do things that don't jive with our code. And our code is what we go by, and we will go by it until everyone understands that this is not negotiable. The only time it'll be negotiable is if it's brought up in front of council and we change the code, not because they want to do it their way. Anyway, I just wanted to. I get tired of listening, reading these little jabs at the city that we've got nothing better to do than conspire nefarious thoughts and actions to circumvent what is just day-to-day life in the city. And with that, Rita.
I have two concerns. One is very mild, and that's, Chad, what's happening with our zip code?
I have not heard.
Is there a way that you can ask and find out?
I can get you an update, yes.
And my other concern is with you, Chad. Earlier in the meeting, when we talked about benches, you said that we should all as council go up and look at the one up by the middle school. Thank you. Well, I know I'm not going up there, and I don't know anybody else wants to go up there either. Order the darn bench. That's all I'm saying. I didn't mean to sound unkind,
No, that's fine.
but would you please, 'cause we want to get this thing going.
So to,
Oh, I should confer with Miss Taryn.
yeah, I'd like to order the actual bench and have it here as a.
Yes, please. What do you think, Sharon? Yeah, we 2/3 of the committee agree. Thank you.
Can you get a third counselor to jump in on this and
Oh.
say, let's get that bench ordered?
Well, anybody who wants to, jump in can certainly jump in.
Okay, thanks a lot. How about if we do that?
Okay,
All right, so we got a majority saying go ahead and.
who's the third counselor?
Yeah,
You're the mayor.
well, I'm a counselor.
Okay,
It works.
it does, it works. Thank you,
And
thank
we
you.
got that as well. So we'll do.
Thank you so much.
All right, there we are. Preston,
Well, my concern, is adjacent to your concern. So we have a resident in this community that really likes to stir the mush. And he goes off with about half of the facts, or less than half the facts, and he just runs with it. So when me as a counselor and me as a longtime Deer Heart resident, I feel like I need to defend what the city's ordinance is in the downtown C1 zone. Because it is special, it's always been special. Dana posted a beautiful rebuttal. Laid everything out. This individual took that and said, you know, thank you very much for doing that and everything like that, and then just bulldozed right over the top of it. I sent a personal email to him explaining that we have a C1 zone. It's like I say, special. And if new businesses, it's up to them to know what the rules are. So I think that maybe, you know, I mean, if there's other new businesses that are moving into town or things like that, maybe what we should do is we should go print out the comprehensive plan and the rules for the C1 zone and send them to every single business owner that's in the downtown C1 zone. That way and they have to send it certified mail so that we know that they've received them. If they're too ignorant to read them, or they don't want to abide by it, well, then they've got no complaint whatsoever. Because this guy, you know, I mean, he just went off on this tirade because he came in with a poor business plan. And then he's trying to blame this body, and especially, you know, our administrator and who's the code enforcement officer. He rants on about the building official, who only went down there to ask if the owner was there so that he could discuss with him installing himself a commercial light in a commercial building without an electrical permit. I don't know where you are in the United States that you're able to do that as a business owner. Particularly electrical.
that's right.
And plumbing. Those are the two that are absolutely fixed. You know, so I think that as, you know, I mean, I hate to throw some more stuff on the front office, but I think that we need to send a comprehensive plan out, certified letter, and make them acknowledge that they've got that and they know what the rules are. It's not up to us. Okay. It's up to them to figure it out. They've invested, you know, a ton of money in this town. You think that they'd want to protect it. So anyway, thanks, Dana, for your letter. Sharon.
Yes, that was a very measured, well thought out reply to him. Thank you for doing that. And I just want to add one other thing. I met with our building inspector, and he was unfailingly polite and patient with us. So I know it's a he said, she said situation, the allegations against him. That's not been my experience whatsoever with him.
Thank you. Dan.
Thank you for your kind words. Okay, so. I guess there's nothing original about my concerns. The issue of signage has come up repeatedly in, public correspondence over the past year, especially around the last year when we had the election and there were some signs that were put up that, didn't comply with the state statute that requires political signage other than yard signs to clearly identify who paid for them. And also when we designed our signs for July 4th, I mean, we were all, we had a discussion about the size limitations and we made a decision that we would abide by the rules that we made, even though we didn't necessarily like them. So I'm not saying we need to change the rules. I'm just saying that maybe it is time to relook at the rules as far as regarding signs. I'm not, you know, so grandiose as we need to put zoning things on or changing the comprehensive plan. Yeah, but I would like us to look at the sign regulations because there are some areas in there where we could shore things up. I think we talked in the past about making limitations on how long you can have political signs up and whatnot. I think there's some things that some work that we could do there. So I would like to see that be on our agenda sometime in the future. I would also, I think a good preventive measure would be somewhat along the lines of, I think what people are suggesting here is that we create some kind of a packet. Since we do have such a unique little business zone down here, and you would hope that businesses coming here would have done their due diligence to understand what the rules are and what kind of a business is going to be a good fit, or what our city, what our citizens have in the past said, this is what we would like to see down there. You would hope that a business would come to us and say, I'd like to create a business that you would like to see down there. But just to make sure that there are, right off the get-go, that we're out in front of these kinds of things, I'd like to see us create some kind of a welcome business packet that has some of the rules about signage, or perhaps some of the things that they need to know about operating in the particular zones, the different zones, and being aware of what their avenues are if they have a conflict, how they can follow through with us or go up the chain of due process and figure things out, so that we don't have this kind of divisive stuff where it's a he said, she said, and nothing's really being done because people don't understand that when you're on social media complaining, that's not the same as coming and complaining to us. So I would like to get out in front of it and implement some kind of a, you know, let's fix it before it becomes a problem kind of a thing. And then the last thing I would like to do is, again, following on what I started with, and that is that a lot of people in the city don't seem to be aware of our limitations under our council rules. And maybe it would be a good time for us to also revisit our council rules, put that on an agenda in a work session, so that we can look at those, and maybe they still are a good fit for us, maybe they're not a good fit for us, but it's always good every once in a while to review things. So I think we should put that on a work session agenda, and that is it. I'm done.
Yeah, well, we are having a work session, October 31st.
That's gonna be hard.
It's gonna be hard for you.
I-
Well,
I think Christie sent out a questionnaire
She did.
that, you know, with 5 or 6 items on it, and we were supposed to choose ones we thought were most important. I think the council.
I believe those were the goals.
Yeah, I think it was the comprehensive, or the charter was the issue, but this could be, yeah, I can see where this could be. But the council rules are the rules that we have to abide by, and our limitations of what we can and what we can't do. And by going through it ourselves, it also then becomes in the public domain, so that other folks can understand also. Because I know that you all have probably received the same emails I have, or the same questions. Why don't you go tell so-and-so to stop doing that? Or why are you allowing them to do it? And I'm sorry, I don't allow y'all to do anything, and y'all couldn't stop me from voting a particular way. But you know, as a group, we make our decisions together.
Right, well, that can go on the same work session that we do with the political signs on the 31st, but I guess we're gonna have to
Please, do we have to do it on October 30th?
No, we don't. We can change that. It's kind of like going the day before Christmas. Okay, we've got a meeting. No.
Except this one we get to dress up in, so I was kind of in.
Yeah, I'll be dressed up, but if you have it after 7 o'clock, I could be there. But until 7 o'clock, I'm already committed to something.
Oh, my gosh.
Are you
10:15,
going
I'm
trick-or-treating?
With the grandkids?
Don't judge me. But yeah, it's my grandbaby's actual birthday, and I'm also committed to the Harvest Festival at my church.
Okay, well,
So yes, I'll be in costume. I'll show up in costume at 10:15, but not.
we'll talk about it, okay? That's, there's a limited amount of time at the end of the month that I got. So, all right. Motion to adjourn.
I'll give you a motion to adjourn.
That's that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We will be in touch about the work session that is now being changed. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out. I know this was a little long, but no,